Hello, everyone. Welcome to Skeptical Inquirer Presents. This is a series of live online presentation from experts who are devoted to advancing science over pseudoscience, media literacy over conspiracy theories, and critical thinking over magical thinking. I'm your host, stand-up comedian, author, and SciCon MC, Leanne Lord, and I hope you'll be joining us in Buffalo, New York, June 11th through 14th for SciCon's 50th anniversary, which is fast approaching. Now, the new and improved Skeptical Inquirer Presents is now streaming on several social media platforms, including Facebook and YouTube. So no matter where you're joining us from, you can pop your questions about the presentation into the chat over there, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. Tonight, we are learning about what science says about astrology with our guest, Carlos Orsi. Now, full disclosure, I've been laboring under the delusion that astrology was just a fun party conversation. When's your birthday? September. What's your sign? Virgo. You know what that means? I'm detail oriented, very organized, because, without us, the 11 signs can't possibly get anything done. Am I right? Giggle, giggle, sip more wine, and off we go. Clearly, I was being naive. Astrology is the archetypal pseudoscience, and its uncritical acceptance leads to consequences that actually range from personal tragedy to social discrimination. And yet, astrology is a multi-billion-dollar business. Back in the day, there were newspaper and magazine horoscopes. Today, there are digital apps with millions of subscribers. There are a growing number of professionals, y'all, offering services ranging from financial advice to psychotherapy. Yet the tenets of astrology are still demonstrably false. Now, in his new book, What Science Says About Astrology, Carlos Orsi traces the history of the practice, its tense relationship with legitimate sciences, and its enduring appeal in the modern world. And we're very lucky to have him tonight. Carlos is an award-winning Brazilian science journalist with more than 30 years experience writing about science and pseudoscience. His work has been featured in all major Brazilian newspapers, and his latest book, English translation, please forgive me, What Nonsense, examines 12 popular pseudosciences and became a national bestseller. His writing has also appeared in our very own Skeptical Inquirer. So I'm very pleased to have him on the show tonight. Please welcome Carlos Orsi.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you, Lian, for the amazing introduction. Hope no, I got impressed with myself with all you, the way you presented me. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're very welcome.
So, okay, let's talk about the book and its subject. What Science Says About Astrology is the first book in a new series. We are starting from Columbia University Press. The series is coordinated by myself, by Natalia Pasternak and Stuart Firestein. Both Natalia and Stuart are CSI fellows. Stuart is the author of, for now, two very popular science books, Ignorance and Failure, which are very nice titles. This series, talking a little bit about the series before going into astrology, this is a capsule summary of the mission of the series, which is to explain the scientific consensus about stuff that is very clear from a scientific point of view, but which are, for some reason, seen as polemic or controversial by the general public, or are treated as controversial on the media. What Science Says About Astrology is the first book in the series. We have some future titles in the works. There will be ghosts, there will be vaccines, there will be false memories, and many more to come. So, what science says about astrology? First thing we need to do is to get to a sort of consensual definition of astrology, because one of the things that astrologers and astrology buffs are very good at is to kind of use a kind of slippery language, and you never know what you're talking about. Oh, it's a language, it's a worldview, it's a cosmovision, it's this, is that. For the book, I adopted this definition that appears in the journal Nature in 1985, and this classic paper by physicist Sean Carlson, the double-blind test of astrology. And you can see that the definition is very objective. It's the idea that heavenly objects from the solar system can predict a person's personality or the main events in their lives. So having this specific definition in mind, what science says about astrology? Well, that it's a hoax, that it doesn't work, that is a waste of time. But okay, it would be a very short book if I would just limit myself to that. And it obviously requires explanation, right? How do we know that it doesn't work? What allows us to say of that? So the deeper or really interesting questions about astrology that take some time to answer are these. How do we know that? How do we know that it's a hoax? Can we be sure? Why is it so popular? Why so many people think it's so convincing? And there are other scientific questions that astrology gives margin to. For instance, because it also is a psychological phenomenon, a social phenomenon. It has been around for more than 3,000 years. It has been criticized by some of the greatest minds in Western history. Cicero, perhaps the greatest intellectual of the Roman Republic, trashed it. Augustine, Saint Augustine, the first great theologian of Christianity, trashed it. Voltaire and the Enlightenment crowd trashed it, and it's still around with us. So, some fun astrology facts. Roman emperors would outlaw astrology. Astrologers were expelled from Italy several times during the empire. And some emperors would persecute people with imperial horoscopes. Because at that time, and other several times in human history, astrology was a very potent tool of political propaganda. A person who aimed to gain power, they would publish their horoscopes, then they would publish bad horoscopes of their opponents, so the people would think that that person was destined to failure. And this is some very curious facts about astrology during history. The CIA piece is very interesting. There was a magazine that was published by a kind of CIA front in West Germany during the Cold War, and smuggled into Eastern Germany as a covert form of anti-communist propaganda. And it's big business. The global astrology market, it's projected to grow. You see the number there. This number is larger than the GDP of countries like Jamaica or Albania, for instance. Bringing it closer to us, astrology is very popular in the United States, and it's especially very popular among young American women. It's perhaps the biggest market for astrology nowadays. So now, backpedaling a little to the questions that I posed earlier, how do we know it's false? Well, they have a lot lines of evidence showing that astrology doesn't really stand up to scrutiny, and these are the main ways that we know that. Statistical testing populations, because if astrological tenets were true, we should see some effect in larger populations. If people born under Aries, under the Ram, really were more extroverted and prone to violence and assertive than the rest of the population, you should expect to see an excess of people from this sign in certain professions, like in the military or in martial arts or things like that. There are the time twins paradox. People who are born very close to each other in space and time, they can have indistinguishable astrological charts. So they should be the same. They should have the same personality or the same fate, and it doesn't happen. There are tests of association, agreement, and discrimination. Association: can people, if you give to a professional astrologer 10 biographies and 10 astrological charts, can this person associate the correct chart with the correct biography and with a success rate larger than chance? No, they can't. Can astrologers agree among each other? If you give the biographies and natal charts to different astrologers, will at least their associations match each other? Will astrologer A make the same associations and astrologer B? No, they won't. And the test of discrimination, given 3 or 4 astral charts and 1 biography, can an astrologer pick the correct biography? No, they can't. And the wrong charts effect, which is a very fun aspect. When you give an astrologer an aleatory, random chart and says, oh, well, this is the chart of Winston Churchill or Vladimir Lenin, they will make a reading of that random chart that's perfectly compatible with the known facts of the lives of such people. So this is the mass of evidence, and there is a lot of these tests and checks and experiments done that show that astrology can't pass the statistical test of populations, the time twins test, the test of association agreement, and the wrong charts effect, which is very, very funny when you get to that. One of the most, comprehensive tests of populations was published in Skeptical Inquirer in 2008. It was made by David DeVos, and he compared. He took the data from 20 million people, 10 million couples from the census of England and Wales, looking for some kind of astrological signal that, okay, so people with such and such signs tend to marry more frequently than chance would have it, and he found some funny signs that weren't really astrological but could be interpreted as astrological. But when he went back to the data, and this is something that will be important soon for our discussion, he found out that there was some imputation biases. Imputation, what is this? When a person fills in a census form, they may fail to fill the birth date of their spouse, or be distracted and copy his own or their own birth date as the birth date of their spouse. This kind of mistake in a very large population created an excess of people, of married couples with the same sign and with adjacent signs also, because there is this, when there was a blank, the member of the household filled his or her own birth date and left the spouse birth date blank, the clerks and the census office would fill with the first day of the next month. So these effects, these mistakes in filling and these clerical procedures created a false astrological effect that, when controlled for, the thing just vanished. I talk about this clerical and bias filling forms error because one thing that you can find and can be confusing for people who aren't really researching the subject. And you can find a lot of false positive results in tests of astrology. And the false positives are caused mainly by small samples and regression to the mean. I mean, that's Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, the creator of the idea of collective unconscious and archetypes and all that. He made a small study of marriage couples and astrological data, and it's fun because at the beginning of his study, he found a lot of things that, oh wow, it seems that astrology works here. These marriage couples, they have compatible horoscopes and all that. But as the sample grew, the effect vanished. So small samples can create illusory effects that then go that get diluted as by regression to the mean when more data arrives. Previous knowledge of astrology is also a confounder. There is a very curious study made in the early 70s by Hans Eysenck, when he asked people to fill personality questionnaires, and then he compared their answers to the questionnaires to the personality predicted by their sun signs, and he found an effect. But then when he controlled his sample for people who knew astrology and people who are naive about astrology, the effect vanished. So it seems that when people who are really into astrology, they really know about their astrological signs, and they are answering questions about, okay, so are you introvert, are you extrovert, and things like that. Some of them will tend to give the expected answer. I mean, they know what they should be because of their sign. If some of you are interested in it, to really do a deep dive in all this research on astrology, sorry, I am getting ahead of myself. Imputation artifacts, we discussed in the previous slide. Multiple comparisons. I mean, if you get a natal chart, it can have hundreds of significant factors. I mean, you have the 9 planets, you have the 12 signs, you have the angles between the planets, you have the angles between the signs. You can factor in a few asteroids if you feel so inclined. So there's a really big number of things that you can find in a chart that can look right just by coincidence, because when you test lots and lots of different possibilities, you may hit something just by accident. This is the multiple comparisons cause of false positives. And social artifacts. I mean, there can be social habits and beliefs and superstitions and traditions in certain periods of history, certain societies, that can interfere with people's behavior and then give the impression that astrology works. I think that the most fascinating social artifact in astrology studies was the so-called Mars effect. That was a kind of a mystery in the 20th century, but it's a long story. But in the end, what solved the mystery of the Mars effect ended up being the fact that some people in Europe during a certain period of the late 19th century, early 20th, sometimes would fudge when feeling the date and time of birth of their kids, because they wanted to avoid unlucky astrological times and then give their kids lucky ones. And this sort of distorted just a wee bit, but just enough to make a kind of statistical signal that entered into history of astrology research as the Mars effect. And it's a fascinating history. I think people, if you are interested, you could do some research on that. And if you are interested in the whole history of testing astrology and the statistics behind it and all the tests that were made and all that, you can really find a very, very good source here. This is almost 1,000-page book. It was published in Holland a few years ago, and you see the subtitle: a critical review of 1,000 empirical tests from the whole 20th century. It's a much more technical book than What Science Says About Astrology, but it has much more fine data. And so if you are really want to go into the minutiae of how astrology is tested and I think that's the place to go. You can order the book from the publisher, or you can find a PDF, a free PDF, not pirated. The authors and the publisher put it online. Anyone can download it. It's a very large file, so be ready for that. But so, if the science about astrology, about its effectiveness and all that, its lack of effectiveness, is so clear cut, why people fall for it? Why is it so popular? Why does it seem to make sense? Well, there's some of the reasons. It brings an illusion of meaning and control. It helps people to structure. Some people, of course, not everybody, but if people who are inclined to kind of magical thinking and things like that, it helps them to put the events of their lives and their feelings into a kind of structure that gives a sensation of control. It can be anxiety reducing. It offers them a way to talk about their feelings, their personal situations, as Leanne said at the introduction. So I am this way because I'm a Virgo, and people have to deal with that. It helps to structure and justify decisions. One thing that it is true mainly for people who consult astrologers. I mean, the secret of being a very good a fortune teller, astrologer, or any other kind, is find out what your client really wants to do and give them reasons to do it. So sometimes people already know what they have to do. So sometimes people know that, okay, I should leave my job, or I should leave my spouse, or I should get married, or I should apply for this job, but they don't feel confident to go with what they really believe it's right. So this can help people to really go there and do what they already know or think they know that as they should be doing. And one thing that I found out while researching my book was that there is really a very, I won't say strong, but considerable subculture of the use for the use of astrology as a kind of therapeutical tool, of psychotherapeutical tool, and again, because of it creates a vocabulary. It offers a kind of organizing myth that helps people to feel that they understand what's going on, even if it's a false understanding. And some people see it as a kind of a tool to talk about themselves, to think about themselves, and even as an adjuvant for psychotherapy. Perhaps the only silver lining I can put there is that in the books written by astrologers for therapists, most of them say you shouldn't use it for people with real problems. They don't say it with these words, but the gist is this is a tool for dealing with what sometimes are called the healthy and well. You aren't going to use astrology to deal with bipolar people or with schizophrenic sufferers of schizophrenia or things like that. But perhaps some of them have this kind of awareness, which is, I guess, better than nothing. But why astrology has this kind of purported usefulness? Why does it offers this anchor for some people? Well, it has a sciencey look to it. It has stars, it has planets, it has angles, it has diagrams, and it's one of the rhetorical strengths of astrology since antiquity, since the times of ancient Greece, ancient Rome. It looks like geometry, it looks like astronomy, so it has sort of symbolic appeal of a legitimate science. That's one point. It has the appeal to tradition, and it has these psychological powers that are listed there. Fodder-Barnum effect. The Fodder effect is what happens when you have a statement that is generic when it's said, but that it is heard as a specific. I think that my favorite Barnum statement is that one: you have some talents and potentialities that you still haven't explored to your advantage. I mean, it's generic, it's true for everybody, but when we hear it, we interpret it according to our own personal situation. So my unexplored talent perhaps probably isn't the same as yours. So he listened to this saying, oh, so I should, perhaps I should try a career as a, I don't know, comedian, because people laugh at my jokes. I never tried. You may hear it as, oh, I should try music, or I should try public speaking, or I should try politics, or whatever. So and astrology is the astrological statements, they are built this way. And it's a very, as a writer, I kind of admire it because it's a very fine art, a very fine way of using language. Then you have cold hot reading. This cold reading is just trying to fishing, asking questions, leading questions, making people give you information without they noticing. Hot reading is making a dossier of your client before he arrives, or he or she arrives. Today with social media, it's easier than ever has been to do something like that. Unreasonable satisfiability is a term that I coined for predictions that can be filled by almost anything. I mean, if you say there's going to be a corruption scandal in the government in the near future, or anything, can do it, from a city mayor to a senator, doing anything from failing to pay a parking ticket to getting bribes from a big corporation. It's the kind of prediction that can be fueled by almost by the infinite amount of events. And confirmation bias, which is when we people tend to remember the hits, value the hits, or in a series of predictions or statements, value the hits and discount the misses, or invent excuses for the misses and things like that. My favorite case of the combination of reasonable satisfiability with confirmation bias was something that an astrologer, R.H. Naylor, was a British astrologer in the early 30s, and he was one of the point persons into making horoscope columns in newspapers a big thing. He was the first great newspaper astrologer in the United Kingdom. So in 1930, he published in his astrological column the following prediction. Earthquakes will occur in October, he gives a date, and British aircraft will be in danger between October 8 and October 15, 1930. So this is what he predicted. It was published in the newspaper in October 5, so some 3 days before the start of the critical period of his prediction. What happened there? No earthquakes, no tsunamis, but a British airship, like the Zeppelin or the Hindenburg, things like that. A prototype of a British airship fell and burned in the night of October 4. I mean, when the newspaper was still being printed, the accident was happening. And 48 people died. It was a tragedy, of course. But so, Nader was wrong on all points. There was no earthquakes, no peninsulas sunk under the sea and all that. The prediction of air trouble with aircraft was extremely generic. If an airplane had fallen, if an airport have been closed due to bad weather, anything could fulfill that. Aircraft will have problems. The disaster occurred outside the critical period. He said that the critical period would start at the October 8th. It happened October 4. But even so, Naylor became a celebrity. He was celebrated as, wow, the great astrologer who predicted the disaster of the R101, and the guy already had a very solid career, but after that, he really soared. Today, we would probably be on Instagram with hundreds of millions of followers. So that's confirmation bias and reasonable satisfiability working in tandem. And now, back about what science says about astrology. What science says about why certain people are more susceptible to the appeals of astrology than other people. We have the social marginality hypothesis that is offered by psychologists who study the subject. It predicts that people who rank low in society, who feel oppressed or down in social hierarchies, will feel encouraged to embrace magical beliefs as a form of compensation, as you said, as a way to, because these people, they objectively have less control over their lives. I mean, they can be in a society with strong forms of social prejudice. They can be beaten up by the police for no reason. They can have jobs denied because people don't like the color of their skin and things like that. So they have their sense of control over their lives is already lower than of privileged, more privileged or less discriminate against people. And so they will tend to embrace things that enhance a feeling of control, even if it's a false feeling. So how this hypothesis, how well this hypothesis fare? Reasonably well. I mean, as we have seen in that data, women are about twice. It's all data from the United States, of the Pew Research Center that we saw in an earlier slide. Women are about twice as likely as men to believe in astrology. LGBT adults are much more likely than straight adults to believe in astrology. Lower incomes tend to lower income people tend to be more prone to believe in astrology than wealthier people. And there are other factors that sort of fit with the social marginality hypothesis, sort of fall outside it. Age, younger people are more likely to fall for astrology. Conservatives tend to be less prone to believe in astrology, which perhaps astrology is one of the fewer modern popular pseudosciences that are less attractive to conservatives. Education, people with higher education are less prone to believe in astrology. And race and ethnicity, Black Americans are more likely than white and Asian Americans to believe in astrology. Another point in which there is studies about scientific studies on astrology that also have a social inclination and that really I don't say shocked, but sort of surprised me when I was researching the book are content analysis of media horoscopes. And people who do research in social communication and in journalism and things like that, some people, they do studies they analyze the contents of horoscopes of different publications and try to find what is common in there and this kind of what kind of discourse is there. This kind of analysis, I think it was pioneered, I believe it was pioneered by Theodor Adorno, that was a great philosopher, sociologist from the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. And he analyzed lots of horoscopes, a series of horoscopes published in California in the 1950s. And I mean, he had some theoretical tools that today wouldn't be considered so good. I mean, it was Marxist and all that. But his conclusions were supported by lots of research done after that. And by different theoretical frameworks and all that. And again, astrological material published in the mass media, in magazines and newspapers, tend to enhance conformism and dependence, promote conformism and dependence, and race, class, and gender stereotypes. There is one study that said, okay, you can, perhaps horoscopes don't allow you to predict the future, but reading horoscopes in magazines, you can predict if that's a magazine geared toward wealthy people, poor people, white people, black people, because the kind of advice and the kind of language is stereotypical and stereotypical for the target audience of the publication. And of course, there is scientific studies, social science studies about the social effects, the larger social effects of belief in astrology. One thing that's also usually much commented about astrology is its role into promoting stereotyping and discrimination. I mean, the horoscope study suggested that, and studies made in society tend to confirm that. There is one very big study made in China about the effects of Western astrology in creating new forms of discrimination in Chinese society. I mean, they didn't have this kind of superstition there before globalization, before mass media, and all that. The penetration of Western astrology, 12-sign astrology in China is a relatively recent phenomenon, but it's already creating new kinds of discrimination in Chinese society. This is from the study. It's one of the several tests that the authors of the study did. They created three profiles in a dating app, exactly the same profile, same photo, same bio, just changing the solar sign of the profile. Michael, that's the name of the character they created. And I don't know if can read it if the screen is large enough, but there are three Michaels with three different signs. There was Leo Michael, Libra Michael, and Virgo Michael. Leo Michael and the Libra Michael had I've had 41 and 46 likes on their dating profile. It's in 41, 46 people like them. Okay, so maybe we can date and things like that. Virgo Michael had only 15. And that's just one aspect of the apparently crescent prejudice against Virgo people in Chinese society. It seems that this comes not from the astrological description of Virgos, but because the Chinese word used for the name of the sun sign Virgo is a word that has some disagreeable connotations in the Chinese language, and it sort of penetrated into the way people who are Virgos are seeing. The same study that did this dating app simulation, they made interviews with HR professionals, and they found a tendency to discriminate against Virgos. So the power of unwarranted beliefs, in this case, the unwarranted belief in astrology, to create social effects that wouldn't be there if the belief didn't exist, is real and have to be confronted. So I arrive at the end of the slide section. I thank you very, very much. This is my I think the slide is a little distorted, but I have a Substack channel and I publish articles on critical thinking and skepticism once a week. If you feel interested, please visit me, read the articles, make comments and things like that. And thank you for having me this night, and I am open to questions, doubts, and just a good conversation. Thank you very much. Good night.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for that. I first of all, as a Virgo, I am feeling all of that discrimination. I know why it's happening here in America because everybody knows that we're better than everybody and we know it. And people don't like when you're that confident. I'm totally kidding. But it's interesting that how you connect that to the real social repercussions when people do have some sort of bias. It's just yet another layer, but about something that's made up makes it very, very frustrating. Listening to your presentation, you said the greatest minds for the last 3,000 years have been criticizing astrology, which lesson to all my fellow critics. So criticizing doesn't make something go away. Just putting it out there, that we are right up there with the greats of Voltaire and St. Augustine. I have other notes here. My handwriting is terrible. Oh, when you mentioned filling out the forms with misinformation or not knowing your spouse's birthday, and I'm like, isn't that grounds for divorce?
I think the guy's just distracted, right? I mean, the census form. Okay.
Sure. Okay. That would have to be a dinner conversation with the spouse for me. A 1,000-page book on astrology. I did not know that there were books out there bigger than Game of Thrones. That was huge. You mentioned that the way some of these folks work, they find out what people want and then tell them to do that thing. My dad did that. I was when I became an adult. My dad was like, "I can't advise you. What is it you want to do? I'll encourage you." That's being a friend. That's being a parent. Who knows? I didn't know he could have made money on that. And I love that the fine print of this is not for real people with real problems. This is this is this is fluff. This is, but some people I think take it too seriously. But the vague questions that people lead with, it kind of leads you to choose your own adventure. You can make the facts fit what you want, which is how we got here, um, everybody. Um, but those are just my quick takeaways, and I thank you so much for this presentation. I know we've got a couple of questions here, and some things to stir the conversation, for which I have to put on my glasses because yes, the font isn't big enough anymore. Let's see. Thank you, Eric behind the wall. Greetings. We're getting ready to go. Oh, that's not for me. Oh, here it is. Did astrologers add Pluto to their calculations after it was discovered? And have they taken it out now? Didn't they have to put it back? I don't know where we stand on the controversy.
I mean, one of the best things of having a system that has no relationship with reality is that you really can do whatever you want, right? So, I think that, I mean, there are people who still do astrology with the so-called classic planets. That is the 5 planets known in antiquity, from Mercury to Saturn, and none of the new ones. There are people who do with all the 9, and there are people, and this is fun. This is in my book. There is this school called Uranian astrology. That there is this crazy guy in Germany in the beginning of the 20th century that he deduced by astrological calculations that there should be more planets out there in the solar system. So he invented a lot of imaginary planets.
Oh yeah, that works.
That he used in his horoscopes. And there are still people using his system of Uranian astrology. And it's so, and they say, no, but okay, we know that the planets aren't there, but there are energies, energy centers around in the solar system that act as planets. I mean, that one thing that I really admire in pseudoscience in general. These people could be writing science fiction, right? They would be making less money, but it would be honest at least. But because it's so creative and how everything sort of fits in when you stop comparing it with reality, of course. But the system in itself seems to be consistent, which is very, very crazy.
Consistent in its inconsistency and weirdness, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is a close. I mean, it's like Middle Earth, you know. It seems so very true when you are inside the book.
Well, I feel like people want things to be true. Like they want something, to point to give some illusion of control, especially when you feel out of control. And I absolutely get that. I'm going to get this wrong, but I think you'll understand what I'm going to allude to. It feels like a few years ago, which is probably more now. They redid the astrological charts. They found something and they added another sign, which shifted people out of the signs they had been born into. And I feel like collectively, those of us who don't treat it that seriously but are aware went, nope, because I got pushed out of being a Virgo. And while, again, I'm not a chart following, this is completely conversational, I felt a way about it. I felt like, well, no, I've learned what these characteristics are. I cherry pick and fit them, and I'm not willing to redo that. So I don't know if that sounds familiar to you or if it was just a crazy American thing that happened.
No, this is one of those things, those moments in which the media just creates confusion when there shouldn't be any. There is, it's an habit, right? But and it's rediscovered cyclically. Every 5-6 years, New York Times makes a story about that. astronomical zodiac. The zodiac is the stars that, from our geocentric point of view, passes behind the sun. If you could see the stars during the day, you would see some stars passing behind the sun. Astronomy, serious astronomy, counts 13 constellations in the zodiac.
Okay.
But astrologers, they just don't. And if you press an astrologer on that, they'll say, no, the signs have nothing to do with the stars. The signs are 12 sectors of the sky that have the names of constellations because people baptized them with the names of the constellations that were closer to these sections, but they are sections of the sky. They don't correspond to the star, and they will tell you that, and they
with
say
a straight face.
With a straight face, yeah. But now you have Vedic astrology that is very popular in India. And Vedic astrology sort of tries to keep the ring of 12 sectors synchronized with the real stars. So Vedic astrology, I think, if I recall correctly, is some 15 degrees off Western astrology. So if you are born at the last 15 days of some sign in Western astrology, you already are in the next sign in Vedic astrology. But I mean, since it has no connection with reality, you can do anything with that, right? You can say Superman flies one day and the other day that he has other powers because, I mean, we're just inventing.
Hang on. Let's stop conflating our imaginary worlds because now we're going to get into craziness. Yeah, don't bring Superman into this.
Okay, sorry.
No. I'm totally joking, but I do love that footnote that you know when it's all imaginary, you really can do anything you want. There's very childlike quality to that, and I thank you. Andrea, thank you. Her question is: do you have numbers comparing astrologyness to educational level, religiosity, and nationality? And I apologize, y'all. I'm getting over a cold. Clearly not well. So that's our question.
Nationality, no. Educational level, yes. I think there was that slide with the Pew Research results. And religiosity, yes. The Pew Research had a section on religiosity, and it's I mean, sort of goes with the results they had with conservative versus progressive. I mean, the most conservative Christian religious people are the less prone, in the US at least, to believe in astrology. I mean, astrology, I think lots of pseudosciences and New Age beliefs, they are sort of substitutes for, I think, people leave religion or they relativize religion, but they feel they still need something to fill that same psychological space, right? There is that. I think it was Chesterton, the British writer, who said that he was like to quip. He said, the problem when people stop believing God is that some of them start believing anything.
Very good. Very good. When I heard you say that in your presentation, and I started thinking, well, why is that? I think maybe it's because religion got there first, and it sort of inoculated them in a way to the other stuff, and they wouldn't maybe discover it or reach for it, as you just said, until they left.
I think that there are 2 or 3 possible reasons. One is that depending on the religious doctrine, astrology is something from the evil or like witchcraft, and so you can't get there. And perhaps there are emotional needs that people that religion, some kind of relationship with religion, fulfills. So there is no space for astrology to get there.
Great. Thank you for that. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Thank you. How would you go about minimizing someone oversharing their astrological based opinions? I always head to the bar. I mean, that question wasn't for me. It's, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, or, oh, is my phone ringing? There's so many ways to exit a conversation. But my dear speaker, any suggestions on how we do this?
Well, I think I'm not the best source of advice for interpersonal relations. Well, I have a failure marriage under my belt and all this stuff like that. But uh, I I don't know. I think perhaps trying to change the subject or saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, oh, you think that you should vote for this person because your horoscope says that," but perhaps you should take any other things into consideration, or what else did you think besides I, I i I think I would try to ask for a different base for the opinion.
Totally agree. But also, the bathroom is a great excuse. I'm just saying. But thank you for that, because it can get awkward. Also, if I can offer, I know this sounds a little odd, but when someone is sharing something with you and maybe seemingly oversharing, maybe they feel comfortable with you, and they think you're a safe space and maybe take it as a positive way, or they're lonely. There's so many lonely folks out here, and you're giving them an ear for a moment that maybe isn't as long as you think it is. And I don't mean to say you have to indulge nonsense, but again, Carlos, going off of your idea to maybe look at this another way. Again, I'm taking the bar of the bathroom. That's me. Stuart, nice to see you. Stuart wants to know, do you know how popular newspaper horoscope columns are today? I don't see so many on online newspapers. Might there be a positive aspect to the trend of digital? No,
Yeah, no,
unfortunately.
I think that I don't, yeah, I think that the only mainstream publication that's still when the horoscope is still, I mean, uh, has a place of uh, this is preeminent in the homepage and things like that. I think it's the New York Magazine that I recall right now.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, they have the Miss Clairvoyant, their astrologer and things like that. But I think that it's sort of going out from online media because it has its own online media now. I mean, there is the
Yes.
astrology apps
Mm-hmm.
and all that. And another point is that perhaps the horoscopes are still there. There's just a little more hidden because nowadays the way content is structured online, sometimes you just enter into the
Yes.
story you are reading, right? You don't see the rest of the website or of the page.
Mhm.
But I think that the online, I mean, astrology now has its own online niche, and it's a
It
very big
does.
niche. I think that there are astrology apps that have more subscribers than many uh, newspapers or magazines.
Mhm.
So they don't need
Indeed.
the newspapers or magazines anymore.
No, no, and that was a great question and an answer. And Stuart, I'll just say it's interesting where it filters in. I'm on Duolingo studying French, and I remember there was a French conversation about one of the characters who believed in horoscopes and one who didn't. And the conversation was then proving the horoscope believer correct through an odd coincidence of circumstances. So I'm in my Duolingo going, really? You guys, really? Is this what we're doing? S'il vous plaît? No. So, but I think you're right, sir. The online community, the way everything is structured now, and the tunnel vision and the bubbles that we can build for ourselves, they don't need newspapers or
Yeah.
magazines anymore. But we are exactly at the top of the hour. And Carlos, I want to thank you for your work, for your presentation, for your time. with us this evening. And I just want to remind our audience who's watching, if you've missed any of tonight's presentation, it has been recorded and will be available at skepticalinquirer.org and on our YouTube channel. And once again, I hope you can join us June 11th through 14th for SciCon's 50th anniversary. So exciting. My thanks, as always, again to you, our speaker, Carlos, to Skeptical Inquirer, CFI, and really to all of you in the audience for choosing to spend your time with us tonight. My name is Leanne Lord. À la prochaine. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was great being here.
Thank you.